It's Wednesday. What's in store for what Wednesday? What could they have in store? Welcome to the Pop Docs channel on this most auspicious of days in the Wheel of Time fandom and community, because for this What Wednesday, we didn't just get a poster, we didn't get a casting announcement, we got an actual scene. I don't know if this was intended to be part of the normal What Wednesday release schedule that Amazon has put together in anticipation and in preparation for Wheel of Time Season 2, as this preview clip was dropped in the middle of the night, at least here on the East Coast, with zero announcement to my knowledge, but to plenty of fanfare in the community, as we all got to jump on and look and watch and see footage from Season 2, and what footage it was. It is of the Dark Friend Social, a snippet of which we got in the trailer. And if you're interested in my own reaction to the full trailer and some of my theories that have been driven by the trailer footage that we did get, please check that video out on the channel. You can find links on the Pop Docs channel to that content. But I want to jump on and do another video and talk through this awesome clip that we got, which I imagine is going to be the first scene we have in Season 2. But before jumping over and watching this clip for probably the 120th time, I think, at this point, with all of you, and talk through some of its different elements, I want to put out there a disclaimer and a warning. I am going to be talking spoilers for the Wheel of Time book series, possibly for the first season of the Wheel of Time, possibly for the second season of the Wheel of Time, because let's face it, I can't help myself in talking about spoilers as it comes to reacting, discussing, and analyzing this clip of the Dark Friend Social. So, if you're worried about spoilers from both the book series as well as the television adaptation of the Wheel of Time, please go ahead and bookmark this video and come back to it after you've had a chance to read the books, watch the first season, watch the second season if you haven't done so already. But enough of the throat clearing. Let's get to it. Let's get to that awesome clip that we got in the evening last night. Okay, we're back. We've got the preview of Season 2 of the Wheel of Time pulled up on Amazon so that we can take a look at it. A note here, I forgot when I first started this and booted this up to put on subtitles, and in my excitement and my effort to try to analyze every little pixel on the screen, I actually missed a lot of the dialogue that was going on in this sequence. And so I ultimately started watching it with subtitles on, and there is some great dialogue going on here, both in terms of world building, character development, as well as setting up the mysteries for Season 2. But without further ado, let's just jump into this scene and see what's in store for us here. At first, my lighting wasn't great, and so as this a wide shot of where the Dark Friend Social is taking place, I thought this was at the edge of the Blight or even in the midst of the Blight. So I was watching it with better lighting, and it just looks like they're kind of in a grove of trees somewhere, some forest there. But we start with a little girl here trying to balance on some stones in a courtyard, grunting, apparently, according to the subtitles. I know the feeling with my bad knees trying to hop from point A to point B to point C. She is trying to amuse herself during what we'll see as the Dark Friend Social sees these images, these stones. I've seen some theories that these are actually seals for the Dark One's prison, or at least a facsimile or some kind of key to the larger seals in the vein that we saw at the Eye of the World at the end of the first season, just happened to be strewn about on pillars, on podiums, on the ground in front of this building. And in the distance, we see some torches walking toward the little girl, and it is Trollocs. And this, I have to admit, I felt a little concerned initially when I first saw this, because these 3 Trollocs look far more akin to the digital video game-esque Trollocs we had in episode 8, when I don't believe the creative team, the production team, had enough time to put together a good-looking CGI Trolloc, and they were certainly constrained by COVID protocols, which didn't allow for the hiring of actors that could don the costumes and the makeup and be on set. And so certainly there were COVID limitations that impacted the way Trollocs look like at the end of season 1 in episode 8. This initial shot worried me because, as I mentioned, they look very similar to the polygons running across the field at the end of the first season. But those concerns are assuaged by the end of this clip, as we'll talk about. Anyway, Trollocs are running after this little girl, and they're going to bang into the door. The girl flees into a room of cloaked figures, except for one, who we know is Ishamael, one of the Forsaken, if not maybe the most prominent, most powerful Forsaken. And the Dark Friends social is going forward here. A couple things I want to note. One, as I mentioned in my trailer reaction video, the way I envisioned the Dark Friends social in the beginning of The Great Hunt was much more grandiose, much larger, many more individuals participating in the Dark Friends social, therefore many more Dark Friends that are out there in the world. This, as this scene indicates, assuming this is the only aspect of the Dark Friends social that we get to see in this series, and I have a caveat, as I mentioned on Twitter last night, it's possible we might get more footage of the Dark Friends social. I tend to lean against that. I doubt that, but it's still a possibility. But this ultimately is a very compact room. We saw this room in the trailer. We saw these individuals in the trailer. And so that didn't align with my headcanon. And I also think, and this is certainly a nitpick, but I think that having this more subdued, smaller council-type meeting actually detracts from the overarching threat that was depicted in the books. Because if this is the full extent of the Dark Friends in the world at this point, it's very small. And so certainly I can understand there might be, from a production standpoint, constraints in having a larger gathering for the Dark Friends social. But also in world, I think there could be explanations as to why that might be. Maybe there is a hierarchy. And there certainly seems to be a hierarchy that's implied by Dana in the first season when she's talking about how she potentially can rise in the ranks of the Dark Friends hierarchy. And so maybe this is implicitly identifying a hierarchy of Dark Friends. These are some that are at the top tier. Or certainly could just be relevant for Ishamael's ultimate goals and plans. Either way, I still wish this would have been a larger setting, a larger gathering of Dark Friends. I think that really laid a greater foundation for the threat that is out there in the world. Nevertheless, I ultimately think this depiction, the way that they wrote this and they shot this iteration of the Dark Friends social, still gets across the important aspects and the important points of the Dark Friends social in the book. And so ultimately, I think the goals of this scene, the intentions of this scene, were achieved. But let's keep going. As the girl plunges under the table, starts looking around, interestingly, the top halves and faces of everyone at the table, except for Ishamael, are covered, so we certainly don't know by their visage who they are. But under the table, around their legs, the lower half of their bodies, they have their normal clothing. And so this is really, I think this is a really great way to get across the potential threats that are going to be out there, but still maintain the mystery that the Dark Friends social in the books did as well. I also like this change, that it's this little girl who we haven't met before, who's also this fish out of water in this strange setting, who is the one seeing all these different wardrobes, costumes, and we're seeing them through her eyes. In the books, it's Bors, a white cloak, and I think it's more difficult in the television medium to have the point of view character for the scene be someone we're going to see in the season, or presumably see in the season, as we'll easily be able to identify them when they arrive. Oh, that's the Dark Friend. That's the person that we should be concerned about. it's easier, I think, to do that in written form in the book, because if you don't describe what Bors looks like, all we know is it's a white cloak. And so we're on edge and concerned about every white cloak we come across, not only because they're white cloaks, but also one of them might be a dark friend who's been tasked by Shamael to achieve some goal in the larger world. Because of this transition from the written word to the visual medium, where we might ruin that mystery if we were to show or see as an audience from that point of view, from the point of view of a dark friend, I think having this from this third-party view helps retain that mystery, and I think is integral for that transition from the written word to the visual. And so I really like the choice of having this third-party outside actor be the one that is scanning the room and seeing that there are dark friends in different walks of life, in different areas of the world, in different cultures of the world, different societies of the world. So I think that was a great choice in adapting this scene. And so as she looks around the room, what does she see? Should mention, parenthetically, in the background, Shamael's talking about Rand al'Thor first releasing him from the Eye of the World. So now we know this is occurring after the end of Episode 8 in Season 1. Shamael is free of the Dark One's prison in total. I've seen on Twitter that the dialogue here is actually drawn straight from the books, from The Great Hunt. And among other things that Shamael's talking about is that Rand al'Thor will be made to serve his agenda, serve the Dark One, either in this age or another age. And I liked in the book, I believe Bors, thinking about this line, is concerned because Bors presumably is not immortal, the other dark friends are not immortal. And so if they're not going to be triumphant in this age, what good is it to be part of this faction, this organization, this team, if you're not going to reap any of the benefits of winning? We don't obviously get that, because certainly, as I was just alluding to, the third-party little girl here is not privy to those dimensions, has not been initiated, has no intention of joining them. So we don't get that dynamic, but I still think that that is a dynamic that's probably playing out in the minds of all those other cloaked figures around the table. Either way, really interesting dialogue here. Love that it's drawn from the book as well. So here we have the first person. I imagine for non-book readers, this is going to be very shocking. I don't believe we saw anyone of this rank in the Seanchan, that brief scene that we got at the end of the first season. And so this is certainly going to be obvious when these individuals with the Seanchan Empire, with the return, start showing up later in this season. But because we're spoiling this in this video, this is a Seanchan, and presumably this is High Lady Soroth, who will play certainly a pivotal role in this season, likely going forward, as she played a pivotal role in a lot of the subsequent books after The Great Hunt as well. But we have a Seanchan here at the Dark Friend Social. Next person that the girl sees is a hand with an Aes Sedai ring. It looks like a black jewel in the center of the ring. It could be a really dark red, perhaps. Presumably, we don't know this for certain. I don't know this for certain. I think the high likelihood is that this is Liandrin. As we know, Liandrin was at the Dark Friend Social. She's a dark friend. She is part of Shamael's plans that play out in the Great Hunt. If this is a black jewel here, signifying the Black Aja, or being a member of the Black Aja, that seemed very strange to me that they would have a separate ring for that dynamic. To the Forsaken, the Chosen, as we'll hear in this trailer, really care what color ring Aes Sedai are wearing? I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they are that concerned about the aesthetics of their followers, their devotees, their agents. But either way, I thought it was very strange if this is a black jewel or mineral that is in this Black Aja ring. And then I also had this other thought that, well, maybe these rings are kind of like lightsabers, how a Jedi turning to the dark side, their kyber crystal cracks and bleeds, and therefore you get this red glow to the lightsaber. Maybe these rings are similar in fashion, that if you join the Black Aja, the ring just starts to represent the black heart within the Black Aja. I don't know. But either way, great demonstration here that there are even agents of the Dark One in the White Tower, in the Aes Sedai, really setting up this great mystery that's presumably going to play out throughout certainly the first part of this season, as Egwene and Nynaeve go to the White Tower and start training to become an Aes Sedai in the White Tower. But let's keep going around the table, see who else we might have here. She's looking around. This I believe, is from Shienaran. This is a Shienaran tabard, a Shienaran emblem. And this, presumably, spoilers once again, is Ingtar, who we know is a Dark Friend and was integral in the opening chapters of The Great Hunt as to what happens to the Horn of Valir in that book, as well as the hunt for the Ultimate Horn and taking place, ultimately culminating at Falm. And so here we have, I believe, Ingtar, who we must be introduced to fairly quickly at the opening of the season if there's going to be any emotional weight to his overall arc, or if he's even going to have an arc in this particular season. So very excited to see how Ingtar's character arc plays out this season. Ultimately, though, I believe this is a Shienaran that we see here as part of the Dark Friend Social. And this was really interesting. The girl starts crawling towards what looks to be a member of the Tuatha Athana and says, "Mom." So, presumably, this little girl's mother is a Dark Friend. Looks like they are wearing the clothes that we would imagine, or at least associate with the Tuatha, the Tinkers. And so it's interesting to think that there are Dark Friends among even the Tinkers, even the purported non-violent, those that claim that they adhere to the Way of the Leaf. And then we have some other different wardrobes and outfits that we don't really spend any time on. And we get our first real look at Ferris playing Ishamael. And I have to admit, I love this rendition of Ishamael. I love what Ferris is doing in this particular role. I personally was not a big fan of the more maniacally crazy Ishamael in the books. I understand how he arrived at that persona given in-world dynamics. But he always came across as very cartoonish to me. That always played into, for me personally, the more goofy, buffoonish role the Forsaken played in the overarching series. And as I mentioned in my reaction video to the trailer, I never thought the Forsaken were as significant a threat as they are reputed to be in the book series. That is, their reputations were far more terrifying and threatening than their actual role in the narrative, in my opinion. And I think this is really one dimension where the television adaptation can elevate the source material. And I think that this characterization, the way that they've written this character of Ishamael, the way Ferris is playing this character of Ishamael, I really like this more cold, calculating, cunning, kind of subdued personality and persona that also has some charisma to it as well. I think it makes him far more menacing and far more threatening than if he was cackling with laughter and speaking in capital letters every time he showed up on screen. Then moving on to this dialogue, I love this dialogue going through the various titles he's gotten, as well as the titles that have been given to the Forsaken, his compatriots that turned against the light in their own age and swore allegiance to the Dark One. And then we get the drop of the Chosen, how they refer to themselves, the title they have given themselves. Really setting up this dichotomy about how the world views them, but also about how they view themselves. Also dripping here with arrogance, I think, thinking and declaring that they were chosen for the roles that they have claimed in the pattern and in the Wheel of Time, the ages of the Wheel of Time. So I love this dichotomy. He's describing how the world views them, but then how they also view themselves in the roles that they have decided to play, decided to claim. And so ultimately, he's trying to seemingly assuage the concerns, the fears of the little girl who was terrified because of the Trollocs, certainly. And before getting to this wonderful reveal of Padan Fain, I just wanted to go back here real quick and look at the demeanor of everyone around the table. So everyone here does not appear to be moving. Most people have their hands on top of the table. It also looks like here in the top left, the northwest corner of the frame, I think that's a white cloak. Maybe that is a reference to boars. Maybe we'll get boars. But ultimately, everyone is very stock still, seemingly very upright. No one seems to be moving at all. And as Ashamael gets up to escort the little girl out of the room, no one appears to move. And I think ultimately everyone is terrified of Ashamael. He is a character of legend of immense power. And so no one is moving an inch to draw any attention to themselves as he moves about the room, except over here, Padan Fain is leaning forward, and he is the only one of them to actually remove his cowl and reveal himself, both to the little girl as well as to the others at the Dark Friend Social. And I think this is a great character moment for Padan Fain because I don't think he cares about himself. I don't think he cares about others. I don't think he's worried about Ashamael or his power. I just think he's chaotic evil. And maybe it is implicit here that he has his own level of power that might exceed other Dark Friends here, but he does not give a crap about protocol and ultimately just being super creepy and trying to terrify a child. And this is another actor who I just think is bringing it every moment he's on screen. He is bringing to life this very creepy character, both in the books and certainly the way that they're depicting him in the show. The other thing I think is interesting here is, as the dialogue earlier indicated, this is taking place after season 1. So Padan Fain has the horn at this point, or had the horn. And so what happened to him? He's at the Dark Friend Social. He's interfacing with Ashamael. We don't see the Horn of Valyr here. And so is this an indication they're going to diverge from Padan Fain's storyline in the books in moving to the television adaptation? I've heard some theories. Specifically, I believe I heard this on Takaran Riyadh. Great real-time podcast. Check it out if you haven't checked it out already. They have a ton of episodes. Listen to it every week. Love it. Big shout out to Takaran Riyadh. But there, I believe, is where I heard the theory that actually Ashamael is going to play essentially the role of Padan Fain in the books. And so maybe we are going to see a transfer of the Horn of Valyr to Ashamael from Padan Fain. After seeing this scene, I'm actually inclined to believe that possibility, that theory is more likely than not accurate. Particularly since we do see Ashamael with High Lady Suroth and the Seanchan later on in the season. So big props to, I believe it was Tom from Takaran Riyadh, who is the first person I heard espouse that theory. I think I'm on board with that theory now. Either way, Padan Fain at the Dark Friend Social, looking creepy. There's this creepy smile. Hasn't lost his creepy touch from the first season. And Ashamael then escorts the little girl outside to confront the Trollocs. The way the Trollocs are standing there, not attacking, certainly almost looking like they're sweating. I think just another demonstration of the power and the stature of Ashamael in the ranks of the Dark One's organization. And here, Ashamael trying to pontificate about the difficulty in trying to designate someone, characterize someone as a monster or as a hero. What does that really mean? Is it only superficial, or does it matter what's within? And trying to explain these different dynamics to the little girl. And so he picks her up, and then together they caress the face of a Trolloc. And here is where my faith has been restored, at least for this particular scene, in terms of the practical effects, having an actual actor in Trolloc costume, in Trolloc makeup, looks so much better than those CGI renderings that they had, certainly at the end of season 1, but also at the beginning of this particular clip. And so now she looks like she is friends with the Trolloc. She might even adopt that Trolloc and take it back with her and her mother to the Tua Athanon. And we have a crane shot slowly pulling away, and there you go. Our introduction to season 2 of The Wheel of Time. I ultimately, despite my nitpicks, thought it was great. I think it achieved what it needed to achieve, predominantly showing us that there are Dark Friends out there that are going to be threats to our characters this season. And ultimately, as it did in the books, setting up the mystery for viewers to theorize about who each of these individuals are, particularly as we encounter the Seanchan, more Shienarans, more White Cloaks, more Aes Sedai, or old Aes Sedai, as the case may be, throughout this season. And that's going to be, I think, one of the main through lines, main storylines, is who are these Dark Friends that were present at the Dark Friends Social. And I think this scene achieves that and does so with aplomb. And I found it fascinating. The acting, again, is top notch. And I think this really does a good job setting the stage for season 2 of The Wheel of Time. And so, with that, I will conclude this reaction video to this wonderful surprise that the Wheel of Time team gave to the community, to fans, last night under the cover of darkness. If you like what we do here, which is review books, review television shows, films, talk about the conventions we've gone to, basically talk, discuss, and analyze popular culture in all of its different manifestations, please think about first liking this video, then checking out other videos on the channel, and becoming a subscriber to the channel. But with that, and for this video, the Pop Docs Clinic is officially closed.